Welcome to our weekly webinar where we talk about all things OT asset management. Today we will take yet another look on OT vulnerability management, and I promise you it won't be the last time because it's such an important topic. And just in case you wonder, well, what does OT vulnerability management have to do with OT asset management? It's very simple. All the known vulnerabilities, all those CVEs that you have heard of so much, are associated with specific product versions. It's not about configurations, it's about product versions. That means if you don't know which products you actually have installed, you cannot know your vulnerabilities that affect your installed base. So for that reason, an OT asset inventory is the foundation of OT vulnerability management. And the neat thing about the integration in an OT asset management system is that there you also get all the context, like where do I have these vulnerable devices? And you also get a workflow for vulnerability mitigation. In case you wonder how all of that comes together, let me point you to this publication that you can download from our website. So we have put together a vulnerability management handbook where we provide a concise approach to your OT vulnerability management. In this webinar, we will be focusing on one specific topic within vulnerability management, and that is reporting. Before we go on, just keep in mind you can ask live questions if you just put in a comment in whatever platform you're using, YouTube, X, or LinkedIn, and we will pick it up later at the end of the webinar. So today I am joined by Wes Davis. Wes is a technical account manager, and he will talk you through the a specific reporting front end that we have created, and that is the Power BI integration. In short, in OTbase, you already have a couple of dashboards. You have some decent reporting. Let me probably briefly show you what that looks like. So if we just take a look at that right here, so this is the reporting area, where you can see, well, there is a kind of a dashboard, and then you can get all these additional reports, and that is fine for the person who actually does the vulnerability management. But it's not enough, it's not good enough when you think about the executive that wants to check how well you're doing or how well the company is doing. And for that purpose, what we have identified is the one tool that you cannot beat when it comes to reporting to management, that is Microsoft Power BI. Because within Power BI, you can give the CISO all the numbers and the donut charts and the bar charts that they love. So that's really a great way how to demonstrate your performance to top management. And that is very important for two reasons, actually. First of all, don't forget that in OT, vulnerability management is a numbers game. That's very different from IT. You have to deal with such a huge number of vulnerabilities that you are totally lost if you cannot put it in numbers. You must, numbers is the only way to see if you're doing anything of substance. And the other thing is, for your reporting, you got to have those donut charts. You got to make your point to the CISO how well you're doing, how many vulnerabilities you have remediated, as an example, how many critical vulnerabilities are still left. And Wes will show you how that looks like in this Power BI integration. So that basically he will be talking about a sub-product of OTbase, which you can license on top of the OTbase inventory. And that provides a seamless integration with Power BI, so you don't have to mess with APIs, etc. And then you can jump right into your dashboarding and do all kinds of fancy stuff that you want. Wes, take it away.
All right, thanks, Ralph. Yeah, hi, everybody. Wes Davis, Technical Account Manager with OTbase. I worked with Ralph last year to build this Power BI custom connector, and we'll go ahead and take a look at it. I'll kind of walk through what it looks like, how to connect and get some data. I've already pulled the data in, so we're not going to really go through that process in depth because it takes a long time because we have so much data. But I will show you basically what this looks like. So to start with, just a real quick run through here. You would come over and do your get data and then come down and click on OTbase custom. You'd fill out this information, filter it by location if you wish, and then you'd hit OK. And that would essentially bring up a list of tables like you see here on another front end screen that allows you to select which of those you actually want to fully load. It would load a preview, and then I can decide whether I want to load hardware, monitors, software, tags, etc. For the purposes of looking at it today, I've gone ahead and just loaded everything this morning before we got started. And so you can see what all of these tables look like in here. Our primary tables would be the devices, hardware, software, and vulnerabilities. And then as part of the devices data set, I broke out the tags and monitors, connections, and compliance into their own separate tables because it makes manipulating the data and building charts and everything with it a little bit easier than if we had it all nested into the same table. And you can also see that over here on our relationships, which Power BI does a great job of intuitively mapping the relationships between all of these tables, which gives us great ability to cross-slice and look at this data in various different ways. So, and then just quickly, we'll kind of look through the tables here so you can see how all of this OT-based data looks like when it comes into Power BI. You can see all of this looks great. It's all nice and formatted. It's all nice and clean. And from there, but what do we want to do with that data? We can build a number of different dashboards. And, I don't think I want to spend a lot of time today really walking through the specific mechanics of how to do that because we have quite a few videos actually already on the channel where I've gone through and built those dashboards from the ground up to show you how to format this and format that and all of that. But I do want to at least provide a quick overview of what it would look like to build maybe a vulnerability dashboard where you can see your CVEs, your count of everything, and put that up there in a nice, as Ralph mentioned, CISO-friendly format that we can then actually publish up to Power BI service. I'll show you a little bit about that later, and have that refreshed automatically and visible from pretty much anywhere. So this is what the data looks like. The first thing I would want to do in a dashboard like this is probably just put a count of all of my vulnerabilities up here. And that would be something very simple like we would use a card over here. So I would click that and I just drop that up there, make it a little smaller. And then for the field, I would probably go ahead and just put my device ID count from the vulnerabilities table. So I'm going to drop that into here. Great. We're not going to do first. We'll do count distinct. That's going to give us, let's actually do the full count. There we go. That's a lot. And we can reformat that if we wanted. We can rename it. This isn't, again, a lot of this is covered in the other videos, but we'll just say vulnerable devices. And there we go. We have that. We could reformat this so it's not a decimal. We could just make it a 681K. That's fine too. But again, videos already cover that. So we'll just drag that. And then I'll bring in some other widgets that I already have in another dashboard off screen just so you can get a better idea of what those would look like in here. And then we can look at the fields that I brought in to make those. Rather than me boring you with doing everything from the ground up, that could be a long video that could get monotonous really quickly. So we're going to just pop a couple of them in here. Okay, so we've got OT devices that I brought in. And as we can see here, what we've done is legend type, count device ID. And let's do a CVE count by criticality. So we've got that one. And that is just on our legend, we have criticality. On our values, we have count of CVE ID. And then usually when we do these kind of tables, it's always nice to have, or these dashboards rather, it's always nice to have a table at the bottom so that as you're clicking through each of these widgets, You're slicing the list table at the bottom to see the actual devices or vulnerabilities that exist. And I had created a table over here already, a report as it's called, or a table, which is just this widget here. And in here we put CVE ID, description, priority, KEV, base score, and number of devices. And that's all data from the vulnerabilities table, just dragged and dropped and renamed and did a little formatting on the table to make it look a little bit cleaner. We could also do maybe like a criticality table. Okay, so we have all this information here. Great, that looks good. We have our location, our OT device ID, our type. I did not put our new category from version 8.2 because this dashboard was made prior to that, but we do have the new category that could be used in certain circumstances where you see fit as well. I'll probably revamp these dashboards at some point to leverage that category and make things a little more granular. Let's also do a tree map. Before I do that, just to show you here on this other chart, we just did OT device ID, type, criticality, location. And then we have a tree map here. That's not a tree map. That is a table I already have. There we go. So now we've got CVE count by location. Just simply location in the details field, and then count of CVE ID in the values field. Great. And then lastly, one of my favorite little widgets here is this one. We've got our CVEs, and what we did here is put in severity into the x-axis, count of severity into the y-axis, and then small multiples. We put the severity back in here, and that gives us, breaks that out into 4 little bar charts instead of just 1. Okay, and I probably don't really need the low here, so this is going to be, anybody watching this who's a Power BI wizard is going to be like, that's terrible, you shouldn't do that, but I like it. So we're going to just drop this little known exploit right over the table because that's just a quick hack to get that in there, and we'll resize it a little bit. Great. So now we have something that looks like a pretty good little dashboard. We could also put a couple other counts up here, and we will, let me go ahead and delete this one. We'll put the actual one that I already formatted over here. That looks like that. Great. This one, let's resize these just a little bit. That looks good. Okay, so now as we start to click through some of this other stuff, we might see those counts change, which is perfect. We see everything updating as I click through the location tree map, or conversely, I can come over to the CVE count by criticality and maybe look at engineering, or let's do safety. I could remove this blank as well. A lot of formatting things you can do in Power BI. So this is a good way to just look at your high-level view of your CVE, your vulnerability landscape within Power BI. I'll show a couple of other things here related to how this can connect to the online service and everything. Before I do that, Ralph, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything that you want to say about what you see here before we move on?
Yeah, maybe one thing I would like to point out. In our opinion, such a report serves a dual purpose. So first of all, as I said in the intro, it's a great way to demonstrate to your executives how well you're doing, hoping that you do pretty well. And the other thing that you probably spot is this is a great way for data mining. And you're going to need your data mining in order to identify those areas that deserve a closer look, so where you're not doing so good. It's also a great way to identify areas that might expose some low-hanging fruits, where you would see, oh, this is rather simple to remediate, and this would let us get rid of, I don't know, thousands of vulnerabilities. So that is what I like about this dashboarding here in Power BI, because it's so fully interactive and it's just seamless. So this is not like you would have to write, I don't know, tons of code. This just comes with Power BI. And the real power in it is that you get all this data from OTbase in a way that is perfectly well prepared for this type of analytics, where you have all these relationships from the CVEs to the device details to the locations, etc. Okay, so let's just take it a step further.
That's great. Yeah, so let's look at a protection dashboard really quickly. And I'm not going to build that all out, but I do want to just bring it over and show it on the screen. Let's take the screen here and move it. So if we can see that. So basically what we have here is one that I had already built previously. And all of these tabs down here are various dashboards that we built in those other videos that I mentioned. The most recent of which was the protection dashboard. And this is a great way to see your patches installed over time, your patch recency, which, as you can see, the fewest of your vulnerabilities have been patched within the last year. Most of them, you can see this kind of steps down as we move closer, which means that the majority of our patches are more than 2 years old, more than 3 years old, right? And this is important when you're looking at your vulnerability landscape to understand how outdated some of these patches are. And we have our patch performance graph over here. Again, we have some tables down here, and this has all been formatted to just look a little slicker, easier on the eyes. And we also have a slicer over here that we can click if we want to drill all this down by maybe critical or non-critical. And then we have this device count at the top that will show, again, as we click through each of these widgets, it'll adjust that so we can see how many actual devices are impacted by this or that CVE, right? And so this is a great little dashboard, and we have a whole video on how this was built, including the DAX queries that were written to make this patches installation over time happen, as well as the patch recency. You know, Ralph mentioned it's great because you don't have to do a lot of code, and for the most part, in all of these dashboards, that's been very true. We pull in the data, we can do some simple manipulation that, you know, any recent college intern you want building dashboards for you could do very easily. But then when you start getting into stuff like this, you're going to have to start writing more complex DAX queries and things like that to get these kind of data points to show up like this. But you know, this is all something that's in those videos, and we can talk about that if anybody is going through this process and needs some guidance on that. We're always here and happy to help with that. So the last thing I wanted to show is, so what if we were to, we want to refresh this automatically? Well, as of OTbase Power Connector 4.0, you can now connect this to your Microsoft Fabric, I guess it's called, your online service for Power BI. And essentially what you would do is you would just come up here and you would click publish. I'm not going to go through all this because I've already done it, but you would publish it. That would push it up to your gateway service on your online version of Power BI, which puts it over here. You can see your semantic model comes in, and then by editing that semantic model, I can come down and do a scheduled refresh. So every day when I come in at 9 a.m., this data has already been refreshed as of earlier that morning. And this is a great step forward for the Power BI connector, since Power BI Desktop still, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have any way to do that type of scheduled refresh. That can only be done in the online version. And 4.0 does allow you to connect to the Power BI Desktop via on-prem gateway and then schedule those refreshes as you see fit. Great. So that's, you know, as far as the dashboard, that's really pretty much, I mean, that's it. That's the gist of it. Again, you have all these dashboard videos that we put out there that you can go and watch and see how to pull in data, how to build the dashboards, how to add things into your values and legend over here, how to build that from the ground up. They're pretty detailed to a fault sometimes, I might say. Having built them myself, I can say that, but they're very descriptive and will help you along the way. And it also just showcases more of what you can do with the data in Power BI with very little intervention required as far as manipulating the data once it's in. You might have to remap a relationship or two here or there if for some reason Power BI doesn't intuitively catch it. But for the most part, these relationships all come in and they're automatically laid out, and it all looks great. Everything's connected and the relationships are set. So when we start doing this and working with this widget or that widget or that widget, it's all going to adjust accordingly because those relationships are set. And Power BI makes that really intuitive, and it's a great way for your OT-based data to be visible in another format and to a wider audience than might be if you had people just logging into the actual instance. That's pretty much really all I have to look at for this video on Power BI. Unless there's anything, Ralph, that you wanted me to cover beyond that, I think that's a pretty good kind of high-level overview of what your data looks like within Power BI and the various things you can do with it.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. So the one thing I would like to add here, just to make the viewers consider the implications and the big picture. If you review what you have seen, I think one thing is super important. With the data that you get from OTbase, it's not just limited to CVEs and vulnerabilities. I mean, that is certainly important, but you're not doing this exercise in order to get scared. So you want to identify a way out. And this is where something like the protection dashboard comes in, or I would say that it starts with the protection data. All that data is available in OTbase. So just think about a very simple data point. In OTbase, you will see the days since last patch for a given Windows box. And certainly that is an important metric that you will use for your analytics, because this allows you to identify systems that are severely out of patch. And if you see that, it's not just that certainly you could conclude, oh, these are certainly also super vulnerable, but it points to another problem that is much more actionable. Because if you see devices severely out of patch, this tells you that your patch regime, assuming that you have one, isn't rigorously applied. And that is certainly an actionable item that you can then focus on. The other thing that you will get with this data integration, OTbase also allows you to set up policies, configuration policies, where you could define things like prohibited software. So let's just assume you had added Adobe Flash Player to your list of prohibited software. Then OTbase will tell you right away, well, here are all those devices where it is still installed. And that is something that is available in Power BI right away. So you can use that data item to do your donut charts, and this is a very nice dashboard in my opinion, because again, you see right away in the bottom left corner a table with the actual devices that are affected. So that goes really a long way. And then you can also just do a drill down into the OTbase device profile from that dashboard. So this is where it all comes together, and where you're no longer talking about just scaring, I don't know, top management with all those CVEs, but turn it into something actionable. So this is, in our opinion, the way to go. And maybe in closing, let me remind you of these various videos that we have done already. So you will find them on our YouTube channel. There you go. That's our YouTube channel at OTbase. And there is a dedicated playlist for all stuff Power BI, where Wes will talk you through various aspects of the reporting and how you can use it to your advantage. So that's it for today's webinar. So far, we don't have any questions. Don't be shy. If something's on your mind, this is your chance to drop a question in the comments, and we'll pick it up.
Ralph, if you wanted to bring my screen up again, I did just want to point out one thing that you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. That, yeah, all of these, I'm not logged into OTbase right now. I guess I should have done that beforehand, but all of these device IDs do link directly, and this is out of the box. These link directly to your OTbase device profile, and there's other links embedded in here as well. Your CVE links over to the CVE within OTbase. So that's, good for anybody looking through here. It's not just visible. You can click through and drill in and actually go into that specific device or that specific vulnerability or that piece of software. See, we have the software name here. So that's all linked directly back to OTbase.
Yeah. So maybe just in case somebody questions you, but is that real? Oh, yeah, you just do a drill down and bang, there's your device profile or software profile. And you're going to see the bad stuff firsthand from those device profiles. Okay, so that is it for today's webinar. Thank you for your time. And all of these webinars are recorded, so you can always go back to YouTube or to X and check out the recording. See you next week. Bye-bye.